Hi everyone, this is going to be a quick training on the SASP Grant Annual Progress Report. So in addition to the quarterly report of your goals and objectives that were provided with your SASP application, you will provide an annual report that will actually go to the Office for Violence Against Women federal agency. Okay. All right, so why do we have an annual report? The Sexual Assault Service Program, or SASP, requires grantees to report on the effectiveness of the activities carried out with grant funds. It's an opportunity for subgrantees to communicate with the Office for Violence Against Women about the work that they're doing and the success stories. And it also gives OVW the understanding of the scope of domestic violence and sexual assault, the trends, promising practices, and the areas of need across the country. And VAWA further requires that the Attorney General to provide a detailed report to Congress on the use of SASP funds. So there's a lot of people that are looking at this report outside of our agency. Okay, so as I said, this report is going to our federal funding sources. It is a independent website where you will actually get the form for the report. So you can get there by navigating to the address here on the bottom part of this slide. You can also find this in the SASP instruction packet and UOVC's website under the SASP information tab. So if we look at the right-hand side of our screen here, we can see the SASP Formula Subgrantee Reporting Form instructions. Once you go to the website, you will see this as an option on the page. This is where you want to start. You can download this form, and it is going to give you a full detailed instruction on how to complete this report. It will give you definitions, it will give you examples, and really importantly, it will tell you exactly what not to put into the report, those activities that are not funded with SASP. Then moving over to the left here, we see the SASP Subgrantee Progress Reporting Form. This is where you're actually going to download the form that you will fill out to submit. So you will click on the reporting form and you will download it to your desktop. And then coming over to the next image on your left, this is going to give you some instructions on how to actually open up that form. It's a little bit tricky because you have to have, Adobe Reader DC downloaded onto your computer. That's pretty standard. So what you will do is open that up, and then you will click on Files, Open, and then from there is where you will open that form that's been on your desktop. This will allow many of the functions in the form to work correctly, and it will allow for the validation button at the bottom of your report to work. And that is to find any errors in the report before it is submitted. And also, this website provides this little YouTube clip that will help give some further instruction on how to do that. Okay. So I won't go into super big detail on what's going to be in this report, as that's what the instructions will do, but we'll just go over and highlight some areas. So the report is going to ask for some basic information that you're probably already collecting throughout the year, but I would encourage you to download it now and just make sure that you are grouping that information in the way that this report is going to ask for it. So the report is going to ask for some basic stuff like the staff that was funded under this program, types of materials that were developed, and how many victims served, victim demographics. And you'll notice that your SASP program plan, or your goals and objectives, is modeled after these two sections of the report. So there's the statutory purpose areas. There's 6 of them for SASP. You're going to select which all that apply that your program is serving. And then the victim services section you're actually going to be reporting on the number of victims that receive services within each type of these services. Okay. Oh, and one thing, sorry, let me go back. Because your progress reports, your goals and objectives are similar to this, we're hoping that you can go back throughout the year, look at all 4 of those quarters, and help fill in some of this information. A couple of the other sections I'd like to highlight. They are going to ask for hotline calls, information, and referral. And so I've highlighted some sections of these instructions, but it's just to reiterate how important it is to read these because sometimes they're very specific in what they're asking for. But for anything that you're putting into this report, it's really important that you are only putting in information that was a part of your SASP program or funded by SASP funds. So, for example, hotline calls. If you have a hotline and you get 500 calls in a year, but only 200 of them were answered by SASP program funded staff, then you're going to put 200 into this report. And they do ask that you separate that out by primary victim and then total number of calls. And so that's for hotline, walk-in, or web-based information and referral. Then coming over to question 18, this says outreach to victims or survivors. And this instruction specifically states report the number of unsolicited letters, phone calls, or visits to victims or survivors of specific incidences of sexual assault identified in police reports or court documents informing them of services provided. So sometimes when we hear outreach, we think of many different things, but this is a very specific question based on outreach of a specific incident of sexual assault identified by police report court document. And then finally, they are asking for the number of protection or restraining orders. They do ask you to break it down by temporary and final order. The last part of the report is the narrative section. There are 2 questions that are required. Let's see, so that is going to be what the most significant areas of need still are in your program. And then what things have you been able to do with SASP funding that you couldn't do before? So you'll fill those out. And then the last 2 questions are optional. However, we would really encourage you to take the opportunity again to highlight the things that you're doing, the things that Utah is doing, and let those federal entities know about that. The last question does give you an opportunity to explain any data that seems off or that is missing in your report. And then finally, don't forget, there is a validation button at the very bottom of the report. Once you click that, it will let you know if there are any errors, missing data, things that don't match up. An easy way to make sure everything looks good before you send it off. Some helpful tips for the report. Be sure that you are using the most current version of the report form. So you always want to go to that website and download before you complete that. Only complete the sections based on the activities engaged in during the reporting period and funded by SASP. So we just talked about that. You're only reporting on the previous year and SASP funded staff. Again, review the reporting form instructions document. You'll be lost without it. Use optional information sections to capture unique successes of your program, clarify data, and provide more detail. Do not use things like acronyms or abbreviations. Again, you've got people on the federal level reading this. They don't know who UCASA is. Well, they probably do, but don't use acronyms. Do not estimate on the numbers of your victims. They definitely want this to be an accurate count. You should have adequate source documentation for anything that is going into this report. And then finally, do not put unallowable activities in this report. If I catch it, I will send it back to you and ask you to revise that. If I don't catch it, our federal grant analyst will, and then I got to do some investigation and make sure that those services aren't being done under SASP funding. Okay, so who to call for help. So if you are looking for support around grant activities that are allowable under your SASP funding, if you cannot submit your report on time, you're going to reach out to your grant analyst. So that would be Melissa Wayment or Shannon Arrington. And then if you have any problems with the reporting form itself, if you have issues with downloading, validating, or saving the format, you can contact the VAWA Measuring Effectiveness Initiative directly at that phone number or at their website. Okay, the annual reporting deadlines. So I know I'm saying annual report, and there's 2 years, so that should be 2. However, this report is tracked on a calendar year, so January to December. And because UOVC has a fiscal year from July to June, we have to do 2 6-month reports. So your first report is going to be due January 31st, and you're going to be reporting on July to December of 2023. Your second report will be the full year of 2025, January to December, and that will be due January 31st. Your third report will be, again, that 6-month data for January 1st to June 30th of 2025, and that will end this SASP 2-year cycle. These reports should be emailed to your grant analyst once they are complete. And that is it for this training. Any further questions, please reach out to your grant analyst.